Morning guys, and welcome to another reading vlog. Today's reading vlog is actually going to be for the Reading Rush Stay at Home readathon, which is starting today, Thursday the 16th of April, and going all the way up until Sunday. So it's a 4-day long readathon, which I am so excited to be taking part in. I actually just uploaded my TBR, so I'll link that down below if you're interested in what I'm going to be picking up this week. But the first book I'm going to be starting with is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I'm reading this one for the prompt to read a book set somewhere that you want to go, because this is set in a New England college, and I can't think of anywhere better to go and study than a fancy, beautiful New England college. So I'm going to be starting with this one first later on, but first of all we're going to go out for our daily walk and just enjoy the nice weather because it is a beautiful spring morning, and then I'll do some reading when we get back. And somehow it is already 4 p.m. and I have literally no idea where the day is going. It is just flying by and I do not know what is happening. Obviously we went for a walk this morning, as you saw, and it was such a beautiful day and it was just so nice to get outside and get some fresh air, and that has literally been like something I've been making sure to do every single day, just to make sure that I'm getting some movement, getting some fresh air, and actually like getting out of the house every single day, because I think that's just really important to make sure that I actually stay sane during this quarantine period. But then once we got back, the morning had already literally just disappeared, so I don't quite know what happened there. So I had lunch, did a little bit of reading in the garden, and then I just had a FaceTime call with Molly. Her channel is Mind of Molly and I will link her down below. But it was really fun to get to speak to her on FaceTime because we've been chatting on like Instagram and BookTube for a little while now, and we've also both been involved in a couple of the same live shows. But it was really fun to just chat with her about books and some other fun plans that we've got in the works, and just in general to chat, because I feel like sort of keeping involved with the book community has been something that's been making me feel a lot happier during this lockdown period, because you still feel like you're keeping up with being social even though you can't actually go out and physically meet anyone. So that was really fun, and we'll definitely be doing more of them. And then aside from that, I am now 50 pages into The Secret History. Now that is actually not very far into this book whatsoever, because this book is over 600 pages long, so I've pretty much just scratched the surface of the introduction. But I am loving what I've read so far, just because I'm already getting a sense of the dark and mysterious atmosphere that everyone says this book is so well known for and that everyone loves so much about it, so I'm really enjoying that. Now, I didn't really know too much about this book going in, aside from the fact that it is a very dividing book in terms of the fact that people either love or hate it, but a lot of people who I seem to share a lot of book opinions with are the people that love it, so I have quite high expectations that I'm definitely going to enjoy it. And from what I've read so far, that's definitely like working out, because I am enjoying the writing style and the atmosphere of this book. And what I've read so far has basically just introduced us to our main character Richard, who has pretty much just moved from California to Vermont, so across the country, to go to a fancy college in New England. And once he gets there, he basically decides he wants to study English literature along with ancient Greek, and so he manages to get himself sort of initiated into this very elite group of students. Basically, I think there's like 6 of them altogether, who are being tutored by this very selective and eccentric tutor who basically has collated this group of very specific students, and that is all I know so far. So it's a very tight-knit elite group of people, and they're all studying ancient Greek together, so I don't know what there isn't to love about that. It sounds very intriguing to me. And aside from that, the book also starts with a prologue, which kind of gives you a little inkling of where the story is going to go, and immediately gives it a very dark and eerie and also quite melancholic tone. But other than that, I don't know much about it whatsoever, and we really are just getting introduced to all of the characters. But I'm loving what I've read so far, and I'm hoping to do some more reading this afternoon and this evening. But for now, I'm probably going to go and do some handstands, maybe a little bit of yoga, and see where the afternoon takes me. So it's now Friday and I think it's pretty safe to say that there was no rush whatsoever in my reading pace yesterday. I don't even know how I managed to do so terribly, but I did only manage to make it through the first 50 pages of The Secret History that I told you about yesterday afternoon. And then after that, even though I was intending to do a lot more reading, I just got distracted by doing some yoga, editing a video, making dinner, and then before I knew it, it was just time to go to bed. So basically I am a terrible reader and I've put myself way behind because I was hoping to read 4 books in 4 days, and now I'm really going to have to push myself to try and get that done because it's now basically 4 books in 3 days. So with that being said, I am actually quite glad that today is a cloudy and quite cold day because I think that will motivate me to stay inside and do a lot more reading than I would if the weather was nice. And I don't really have any other plans on either, so this is basically my main priority for the day, and I'm hoping, putting it out into the universe, that if I push myself enough I might actually be able to finish this one today. So that is the plan, but for now I'm going to grab some breakfast and then get started. Alright, so it's been a couple of hours since breakfast and I've pretty much just been reading since then, and I'm now 125 pages into this book, so I've definitely made a little bit more progress, and this book is just getting more and more interesting with every single page. I actually am quite surprised by how much I'm enjoying it just because the chapters for this book are so long. So like I said, I've just got to 125 pages through and I've pretty much just reached the start of chapter 3. And normally I really do not like books when they have such long chapters because I feel like it makes the story drag and I just feel like I'm hardly making any progress, but for some reason with this book, even though the chapters are massive, I just am absolutely loving the way that it's written, and I feel like because it's so like character focused rather than being very focused on an action filled plot, it really doesn't matter that it's longer chapters because you really are just getting to know the characters and being introduced to all of the darkness and mystery that's surrounding them. So I feel like in this instance, the long chapters are actually sort of helping the story because I feel like you're delving even deeper into all the characters and the story. So that is something that I'm actually pleasantly surprised by, just because I was worried that that might kind of put me off of the story, but actually it's quite the opposite. And then the other thing that I'm loving is just the way that this book, right from the very first page, has just very subtly been like alluding to bits of mystery and darkness and just things that are about to be revealed, but it just very slowly like drips them into the story, and it just is so compelling and so intriguing that I literally just cannot wait to carry on reading this one because it's just such an interesting story and I really want to know what's going on and what is sort of like happening in this very mysterious group of elite academic students. But with that being said, I think we're about to head out for our daily walk in a few minutes, so I'll pop the book down for a little while and then come back and read once we're back from our walk. Well, kind of like yesterday, today is flying by, but I feel like I'm making a lot more progress with reading today, which is good. And I'm now about halfway into this book. I think I've just made it to 330 pages in, and this book is just incredible. I feel like there's not too much I can say about it without giving away spoilers, because it's very character focused with kind of like one main plot point driving the whole story, and so I feel like I can't really say too much about it without giving any major spoilers away. But what I will say is that all of the characters are kind of despicable people and you don't really necessarily like any of them, but they are extremely compelling and very, very interesting people to read about. So it's one of those like interesting books that follows, I was going to say morally grey characters, but I don't even necessarily want to say morally grey because I think a lot of them are more in the like fully morally bad category rather than being grey, although there is definitely some element of like morally grey in there. But either way, they're not very good people, but they are very, very interesting. And also this book, without giving away any sort of major details, is split into two parts. So the first part is basically alluding to a major event, but it mostly takes place prior to the event. And then the second part, which is the bit that I've literally just started, is basically the aftermath of this event that the book kind of alludes to right from the beginning. So I feel like that's quite an interesting setup with like basically the lead up and then the sort of aftermath of this main sort of focus of the story. And it's very dark, very mysterious, and I am loving it. But it's currently about 6 p.m. Like I said, the day is just flying by, so it's already dinner time. So I'm gonna go and make dinner. It's Friday night, which means I'm having pasta and garlic bread, which I'm super happy about. And then I'm just gonna probably spend the rest of the evening reading. About to say my hair looks crazy today, but my hair always looks crazy, so there's kind of nothing new there. But it does feel particularly wild this afternoon because we went out for a walk earlier and it was kind of windy, so it's kind of windswept, and then we also just did yoga, so I'm probably looking a bit bedraggled from that as well. But that is besides the point. What I was coming on here to say was that this reading rush is not going to plan whatsoever. I had intended to read 4 books in 4 days, and so obviously my game plan was to read 1 book a day because that just kind of makes sense. But as it turns out, we are on the afternoon of day 3, so it is Saturday afternoon, and I'm still on book number 1, The Secret History, and I'm actually not even mad about it. Obviously I did want to do a lot of reading this weekend, but I picked this book to start with, and I have been blown away by how much I've enjoyed this book so far. I just think it is such an incredible and interesting and compelling story that I kind of don't want to rush through it, because it's a book that is so focused on minute details and so focused on the intricacies of all of the characters and the way that they interact with one another, and of course lots and lots of mystery, that I feel like rushing through it and reading it in say like 1 day would have just meant missing out on some of those details and not being able to appreciate this book for how brilliant it actually is. And so I've obviously decided to read it a little bit slower so that I can actually soak in all of the brilliance of this novel, and I'm honestly loving it so much that I wouldn't have wanted to read it any faster, just because I think it's so incredible and I'm literally loving every single page. With that being said though, I definitely am going to be finishing this book today because it is Saturday afternoon like I just said, and I'm currently on page 450, which is about 175 pages from the end, so I should definitely be able to finish that in the next few hours, which I'm really excited about because I don't know where this book is going to go or where it's going to end or what is going to happen to any of the characters, but I'm really, really interested to find out. Particularly because this is a book which deals with some very dramatic and very, very dark subjects, but the characters in the book do not respond in a normal way to these events, and they respond in such a like nonchalant way that you kind of can't believe what you're reading, because they're responding in a way that feels so alien to the events that are taking place. And it's just so interesting to see how all of these characters react and how they all sort of behave around one another, and I'm just obsessed with it. I think it's so interesting and I am loving every single page. So I'm basically planning to read for the rest of the day because I don't really have any other plans except for editing a video later, and that's pretty much all I have on for the rest of this Saturday. And also I am loving the weather today. It is super dark and cold and gloomy, and it's actually been raining a little bit, and I just feel like that is so fitting for this dark academia book. So I'm loving the weather, and I'm just planning to go make a cup of tea, settle down and just read as much of this book as possible. I'll obviously keep you updated if anything else major happens, but aside from that I'll probably be talking to you once I finish this book, because that is pretty much what I'm planning to do right now. called English breakfast tea when you drink it all day long.
Drink it all day. It's not just breakfast time.
Just finished up reading The Secret History, and I mean literally wow is the main thing I can think of to describe this book, because it was such an incredible reading experience and I just cannot get over it. It's a weird one because in some ways this book deals with a lot of big subjects and some quite dramatic plot lines, but in other ways it's quite a slow-paced book that really is sort of driven by the characters that inhabit the world. And so it's kind of an interesting one because it does sort of take you on a very meandering and slow journey through these characters' lives, and yet it's just so compelling. And I just think it all comes down to the writing style that just makes these characters and this dark and mysterious world that they live in so interesting that you just don't want to put it down. But equally, it was a book that took me a little longer than I expected to get through just because of how detailed it was. But either way, I'm literally obsessed with this story. It's definitely a 5-star read, and I'm so glad that I finally read it, because I've had people telling me to pick up this book for ages now, and it's a book that definitely seems to divide people either into loving it or despising it, and I hear a lot of people giving up on it because it is quite slow paced. But personally for me, I absolutely loved it because I love like character focused books and just books that take a little while longer to get through but sort of really delve into the characters that they talk about, and this is exactly what this book does, and I just loved it. So I'd highly recommend picking up this book if you've been thinking about it or it's on your shelves, because I think it's absolutely incredible, and I'll definitely be reading more by Donna Tartt in the future because I just loved the writing style of this book so much. Now, of course, I am still doing the reading rush until tomorrow evening, so the next book I'm going to be picking up is slightly different, and that is going to be Reasons to Be Cheerful by Nina Stibb, which is definitely a very different vibe from The Secret History, but I'm looking forward to reading this one because I don't really know too much about it, so I'm going to be surprised and just figure out what it is when I get to reading it. But for now, I'm actually going to do a little bit of editing, take a break from reading, and then maybe start this one later on. Welcome to the final day of the reading rush. I kind of can't believe it's already Sunday. I feel like these 4 days have gone by so quickly, but I am currently about 40 pages into my second read for this readathon. I picked up Reasons to Be Cheerful last night just before bed, and then I also read a little bit of it this morning, and so far I am definitely enjoying it, although I'm not very far in, so I don't entirely know what the book is going to be about yet. But this is a book that's set in the 1980s, and basically what I've read so far has just introduced us to our protagonist Lizzie, who comes from a little bit of a troubled household where her mum has dealt with alcoholism as well as a few other issues, and at the beginning of the book Lizzie has just left school without any qualifications, and she manages to get a job as like a dental assistant, and she moves into the flat above the dentist, and she's kind of just getting settled into her new life and trying to sort of make her own way in the world, find some independence and all of that fun stuff, and that's pretty much all I know so far. But I'm really excited to see where the book goes and hopefully just have a nice light-hearted reading experience with this one, because I have a feeling it's just going to be quite a fun read. But it is currently about midday, so I'm hoping to be able to finish this one today, because obviously then I'll have finished 2 books for the reading rush, which I'd be quite pleased with considering that The Secret History was quite a big book and also just so detailed that I took a little bit longer to read it. So I'm hoping to be able to tick off 2 books from my TBR, and I've also just done a little bit of Sunday baking, so I decided to make an apple crumble, which is currently just in the oven, and I cannot wait to eat that. So I'm basically just waiting for that to cook, and then I'm going to sit down with a cup of tea and some crumble and get some reading done. I just got a little bit of book mail just after finishing my lunch, so I thought I would open it on camera, but I think I know what it is and I'm very excited about it. Yes, so I've got this copy of Bunny, which is a book that I'm going to be buddy reading with a few people in May, but I'll be talking more about that in another video, I think. But I'm super excited about this one because, having just finished The Secret History, I am so excited to read some more dark academia, and this is basically a book about like another weird elite group of people at a fancy selective college, so I'm hoping that this one will be just as enjoyable to read as The Secret History was. But yeah, I'll be reading this one in May at some point. So it's about 5 p.m. now, and I just finished up reading Reasons to Be Cheerful, which was actually a really fun read. I picked this one up for the prompt to read a book that you think is going to make you happy, and this one definitely ticked that box for me, just because it was really fun and light-hearted for the most part, and it just had a very eccentric and odd cast of characters, which just made for a really interesting reading experience. I ended up giving this one 4 stars, although maybe it's more of a 3.5. Obviously you can't do 0.5s on Goodreads, so I ended up giving it 4 stars on there. But it wasn't anything super groundbreaking, but it was just a fun and easy read. Obviously I read it within like less than a day, so it's a really fun, easy read to get through, and I just enjoyed it, particularly because for the most part it was a really funny book because of the characters being quite odd and very unique. But there were also some very serious themes addressed in here, particularly with regards to racism in the 1980s, and also a few other things as well. And there were certain times where you became used to the writing style being very like funny and light-hearted, and then you'd kind of just get hit by a much more serious theme, and I think that really stood out against the overall light-hearted nature of the book, to the point where you really kind of took those different elements even more seriously, just because they really stood out as being extra serious in the nature of the book that was otherwise very just light-hearted and fun, which I think worked really well in the favour of this book and just made it really easy to explore the context in which the author was writing in and understand these serious themes, as well as still having an enjoyable reading experience. So overall I really did enjoy this one. But given the fact that it is pretty much Sunday evening already, that pretty much brings my reading rush to an end. I only ended up reading 2 of the 4 books that I set out for myself, but given the fact that both of them were really enjoyable reads, I'm pretty happy with that. I don't really mind that I didn't quite manage to finish all of the books that I'd planned, because they were both such incredible books. Now, The Secret History is one which I think is going to be in my top books of the year, like it was that good. Not quite so sure that Reasons to Be Cheerful was quite that good, or will sort of remain in my memory as such an incredible read, but they were both still really fun, and I've just had a fun time staying at home pretty much all weekend and doing lots of reading. So if you took part in the reading rush, please do let me know how much you managed to read and which books you decided to pick up, and if you've read either of these books, let me know your thoughts, because I'd love to talk about them, especially The Secret History, because it was incredible. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.